Ethical Perspectives on the News is produced by the Interreligious Council of Lynn County, which is solely responsible for its content. The views and opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KCRG TV9.
Good morning, and welcome to Ethical Perspectives on the News. I am your moderator, Karl Cassell. Today we are going to discuss the rise in sports gambling here in the state of Iowa and the effect it has, is having, and will have on those who participate or connected to those who participate in gaming. Joining us today, we have a great panel of experts to shed light on a growing industry and a new trend and potentially something that will be with us for a long time. First, we have Todd Dorman, editorial columnist at the Gazette. Good morning, Todd. Easy for me to say.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Preuss, who is the project director for the Iowa Department of Public Health. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Ehrecke, President and CEO of Iowa Gaming Association. Good morning.
Good morning.
And so let's just start with when the state made it legal. What were some of the ramifications or maybe some of the reasons that the state of Iowa moved to allow gambling and online gambling to occur?
Maybe I can try to address that, representing the 19 commercial casinos. Back in 2018, New Jersey challenged why was there only just Nevada that was allowed to have legalized sports wagering really for the last couple of decades. And so they took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that indeed there should be, it was unconstitutional that just one state should have this. And so that opened up then that states could be allowed to do this, but they would have to opt in. They'd have to pass it in their states. So we pursued that in 2019. We actually introduced it, really, the legislature really brought this about, that this might be coming. And then in 2019, we passed and legalized sports wagering, which allows for both retail in person in a casino and also mobile, which they can get an account and then place their bets anywhere within the state. There's some great geofencing and the like that they can't go outside of the state to do that. So it's been up for almost now 2 years since it was authorized. It was actually put in place August of 2019, but the governor signed it really this week 2 years ago. So it's been really exciting since then.
Thank you. And why the rise in popularity, or has it always been popular and it was just more hidden because of the legality? But what's the reason for the rise in popularity?
I would like to say that it was, it's always been around. I mean, people love to watch sports and bet on sports, probably since the beginning of time. They were betting on maybe whatever kind of sporting thing. But so it's really been in the illegal market where it wasn't regulated, no oversight, no regulations. And so what we brought to it was a spotlight put on that. We suggested that if you have this and put it within our casinos that are used to operating in a heavily compliant way and with good regulations, in which this bill that was put in place was vetted through both the House and Senate a lot to get to what we felt was one of the better bills in the country, that has a Racing and Gaming Commission, our regulator that sets the standards, sets the oversight. And that really brought a level of integrity to this, because what we were hearing back at the time, anecdotally, people that were wagering illegally, they would maybe win $1,000, but they wouldn't get paid. Who do they go complain to? No one. They're just out. That would not happen. And that gave them, people the confidence and for not only those that do like to wager, that were familiar with it, but even those that were not, that all of a sudden thought that this is something that is great. And all the variety of sports, from if you like football, if you like basketball, NASCAR, golf, tennis, it's all available in the collegiate and pro and international arenas if they are sanctioned sports.
Should we be concerned, Eric, that the rise in gambling will cause addictions and thwart family legacies or savings? What are some of the concerns that you guys might have or see that might become issues if this continues to arise?
Yeah, Karl, and just to echo on Wes, I think the number one
important thing here is that this was an industry that was going on for years within the state illegally. And we saw that from just the individuals that would come and seek treatment from us for problem gambling here in the state of Iowa. And it was about 4 to 5% of our admissions. And one of the things that we did very proactively prior, at the time, as Wes referenced, the legislative work that was going on behind the scenes in 2017, 2018, and then that led to legalization in 2019, was really trying to get a pulse of what's going on with sports wagering in the state of Iowa. And so we asked some questions in 2018 to get a baseline of what was going on in sports wagering. And one of the things that we found out is that the sports wagers in the state of Iowa were the people who were already gambling. We found that among sports wagers that 99% of them were also engaged in another gambling behavior. And we know from a risk standpoint, the more gambling behaviors that you're involved in, the higher risk that you are. So in the general population, about 13% of the population and any of the adult population in any given year is going to experience a problem related to their gambling. Individuals who were reporting that they were betting on sports, whether it was illegally or doing office pools or, the backyard pickup game, they were twice as likely. 26% of them were reporting themselves to be at risk for problems related to their gambling. And when you talk about what was going on as far as the legacy or how it's impacting communities, is that we see as many as 25% of Iowans, adult Iowans, know somebody who has been negatively impacted from their gambling. So the concern is always there, but the thing we don't want to go too overboard on is that we know about 85% of the people who gamble in the state of Iowa do so without any concerns. Our real focus from a department and a public health perspective is to help mitigate any harms related to the gambling. And that's where things like 1-800-BETS-OFF come in.
I'd like to add to that just the responsible gaming, component of this is something that we've been partnering with Ehrecke and his treatment providers and others for several years, certainly advocating that 800-BETS-OFF and having that be highly recognizable, but particularly now within sports wagering specific, and even with the mobile component, there's opportunities for people to have a designate the amount of time that they want to wager, the amount of money that they want to wager, or even have a timeout for up to 3 days. So there's some of these things that they can do that can help them to help themselves, if you will. So we can, it's really, and this, what we're trying to advocate is bet with your head and not over it. And that this should be a fun experience, an entertainment experience, and to try to cut down. And certainly if somebody does need help though, there is help, and we advocate for that. And every ad that we place has the 1-800-BETS-OFF as a part of that.
Go ahead, Todd.
Well, I think the gambling industry recognizes that this is changing, especially with the smartphone mobile component. I mean, we built sort of a casino industry in Iowa that was sort of focused on building large resort style casinos where someone would drive a long ways and go for an entire weekend and maybe play golf and hit the spa and some of those things. But that's changing, and the demographics are changing. People want to gamble maybe closer to home for an afternoon. And as far as demographics, I think they used to say that the average gambler was maybe in their 50s in Iowa. And now, attracting these smartphone sports betting apps are going to attract a demographic that maybe isn't visiting the casino as often or at all. And I think that's going to be the future, because there are competitive pressures on the industry. I mean, we're watching in Nebraska, they're building their first casino, which is obviously going to have an impact on the Council Bluffs casinos. And so I think the industry is definitely looking to technology to sort of figure out how to make revenue going forward in a changed market.
And so I want to piggyback onto that, Todd. So Cedar Rapids, for instance, has wanted a casino for the last few years. The technology is changing the way people bet or gamble. Do we see casinos or resort-style casinos being the future? And this is for anyone, but Todd brings up a point. The technology is changing how much how people gamble. Will there be a need 10 years from now to still build large resort-style casinos? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, I think when Cedar Rapids went their last bid, you had two investor groups who were trying to build smaller casinos sort of in the urban downtown area of Cedar Rapids. So I think they were already acknowledging that maybe, a casino closer to a population center with a built-in market of gamblers on a smaller scale, and now maybe with a sports book included in that, might be more successful in the long run than the larger resort casinos. But I still think, the larger resort casinos, pushed back against that and still, have a lot of say in how this competition is gonna unfold. I mean, that was one of the big reasons Cedar Rapids didn't get a casino license, is because the folks in Waterloo and Riverside and those casinos, those owners argued that the cannibalization argument that the market didn't have enough gamblers to sustain all those facilities. But moving forward, it's possible that there may be room for a casino in the Cedar Rapids market if lawmakers and others are worried about where the revenue is going to come from. So we're going to have a gambling referendum on the ballot this fall. It's been 8 years since Lynn County voted, and so they have to vote again to continue to be in the running, I guess, for a casino possibly someday. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds this fall.
I think Todd makes a good point about how things have evolved. I mean, 30 years ago, we had the first riverboat casinos in the country. I mean, there wasn't any land-based ones like you have here. It was all on the river in an intent to try to be a catalyst for economic development, to generate tourism dollars and create good jobs when there was a high unemployment from the farm crisis back at the end of the 80s. But since then, it has evolved now. So where the Racing and Gaming Commission, our regulators, have expected these to have a hotel, fine dining, perhaps some amenities like spas and golf courses, bowling alleys, and to really have a premier entertainment destination for even people that don't even want to gamble, that there's still other things to do or in addition to. And so that has been the model that has been put in place. And for some of these, that's an investment of well over $100 million that they have, and they have to try to get some of that back and not have that be with other casinos right on top of them. So that's been part of that. But I think to also the point about with the mobile component for sports wagering, about 80% is the average of what is being wagered online in placing bets versus people coming into the sports book or into the casino to place their bets. So that is a trend that it may change, may not. But that's also a good indicator of what could come with other aspects of gaming that could be online to supplement or dovetail in. But if it's done in a regulated, compliant, heavily effort to dovetail us together, that'll be things that will be looked at as the trends continue to evolve in the gaming industry.
Yeah, and state regulators didn't want Iowa to become like South Dakota, where you've got, slot machines and gas stations and storefront casinos. They wanted it to be, and from the riverboat days, it was supposed to be originally about tourism. I mean, that's back when you got on the boat and the boat actually cruised and you were limited to losing like $250 or something like that. It was sold, and to date myself, I was a house page in 1989 when the riverboat gambling bill passed, and they wanted it to be about river tourism and less about gambling. But over time, we've seen that in order to make the kind of revenue that the state expects and that the gambling industry wants to make, they had to expand and take them off the rivers and make land-based and allow the horse tracks to have slot machines. And so it's been a steady evolution since 1989, and I would expect that evolution to continue, and technology will probably be part of that, and maybe a new model for what regulators see as a casino that they can accept.
So do we see some alarming trends developing? And if so, what should we be cognizant of as society?
I guess maybe from our perspective, now we're 30 years old in the state, and as we started out really for being a catalyst for economic development, generating tourism, creating good jobs, and so the industry here in Iowa, as a indicator, Before the COVID pandemic, we employed over 8,000 people, great employers in each of our communities. We have a Buy Iowa First program. We purchase over $250 million of Iowa-based products and services. We have a charitable component of this where about $90 million a year go to every county, to nonprofits in every county for all kinds of worthy projects. And certainly then the tax dollars that are generated for the state pre-COVID of over $320 million. So that you add that up, and collectively, that's a $1 billion annual economic impact to the state. So we hope to get back to that again, and I believe that that's a real positive for the state. It's being done with a high level of integrity, lots of regulation to that, and again, but though we have to be doing it in a responsible manner and making sure that keeping that percentage of people that are prone to compulsive behavior, whether it's gambling or alcohol, credit cards, whatever it is, that they need to seek help. And fortunately, we have great providers within Ehrecke's group that are there to really try to help people and assess people that need that. But we'd like to think well over 95% of the people can go to a casino for the fun and entertainment it's intended to be. And we believe that trend will continue as even with the adding new entertainment amenities like sports wagering, that things will, there's always going to be someone that would enjoy that kind of an experience, that entertainment experience with their friends.
Yeah. And I would echo everything that Wes has said, and Todd, certainly your comments as well. And I think from strictly from a public health perspective, from the integrated provider network, which provides the problem gambling treatment and prevention services across the state of Iowa in every single county, continuing to raise the bar and the level of awareness. I mean, 88% of Iowans are aware of 1-800-BETS-OFF, but we know that only about 40% of those people who call 1-800-BETS-OFF even know that what would be the signs or symptoms of someone that might need help or assistance, or that a loved one can even reach out through 1-800-BETS-OFF to get help from themselves, to potentially help a loved one get help for gambling. Gambling addiction, a gambling disorder, problem gambling, whatever you want to call it. If someone's experiencing problems with gambling, it's not a morale issue. It's not a weakness issue. It's an addiction. The brain lights up when someone has problem gambling, just like someone who's on cocaine. And a lot of these people suffer in silence. And it's hidden. People can hide their financial problems that they might having until it gets to the point where they're draining, their retirement accounts, or, the bank statements are showing that, they're upset, or their credit cards have just gotten out of control, or they've taken out a second mortgage. There's, the stories are out there of retirees blowing $800,000 in their retirement account. And by helping to raise the awareness and get the message out about 1-800-BETS-OFF, we hope to intervene earlier. But the reality is only about 1 out of every 100 people who could benefit from treatment actually reach out for treatment. And the message we really want to let these people know, that in the midst of everything that's going on, they're not alone. It takes great courage to reach out for help. I mean, we have a brand new Be Number One at Getting Help campaign that was out there. We did these focus groups and got a lot of information about how individuals who are struggling with their gambling are feeling, and they're feeling shameful, and they're feeling guilty, and they're feeling, no one's going to understand what I'm going through. And myself, even as a person that lived recovery, I'm in recovery myself, lived experience, not from gambling, but from other things. And I will tell you, it's a very lonely place to be. It's a very frustrating place because you want to be in control and you can't. Your brain's taken over. You're making choices that you ought not to be making for yourself. And that first attempt to reach up, pick up a phone, call someone and talk to someone, and they can listen and they can hear that there's someone on the other end that's offering hope for a better tomorrow, and that you're not alone. And that's what Your Life Iowa is there for. That's what 1-800-BETS-OFF is there, is that help is just a phone call away. And to the point of, we will make sure we get you connected with someone locally, whether it's a family member who's concerned or the gambler themselves. That's what we're there for.
Perfect. So COVID was mentioned, and we've had a year of struggle, even getting our sports back online to the point where they're allowing in stadiums. But because of the technology, people can place bets on their mobile devices. Is the industry very eager to get sports running at full tilt again because of the economic impact of sports gambling? I'm assuming we don't want to see a shutdown in the betting industry again.
Well, certainly last March when we were shut down the casinos and ultimately then they shut down all sports wagering, about all you could, in the UK and the US, there was nothing. It was just surreal, if you will, for that. And that went for about 11 weeks. But there was maybe like a Belarus soccer match or some, tennis, like ping pong match somewhere that, so there wasn't much at all. But we really have come back. I mean, football is probably king as far as wagering. But we didn't have we didn't have a March Madness last year to compare to. But since December, we've been exceeding over $100 million in the handle, which is the majority of that goes between the bettors. But it's increased to having a record amount in March. We've consistently been over $100 million for 5 months now, and I think that is hitting its stride. And that is partly due to the fact that people can now register online for having different choices of sportsbook operators. There's been a lot of advertising, maybe too much, some would argue, but we had to go in person for 18 months to register at a casino. And that came off on January 1st. And so then people that want to have more than one account to be able to compare the odds and be savvy about that are given more choices of where they can go and do that online to get registered, establish their accounts, have all the, make sure you're over 21. So that has been, I think, successful. And now that we are coming to the point where they think there's still more growth to come. And particularly too, back when this was all being worked out in the Supreme Court, all the major leagues, NFL, all of them opposed having illegalized sports wagering. But the hypocrisy was already there, that it was already allowed in Nevada, but nowhere else. And they were putting the spreads out for all those that were betting illegally. And all the sports, every bar in Iowa and America probably had at least a lot of them had a place where you could place a bet through a local bookie. Absolutely. And so that's what's really is now hitting its stride, that more and more people are looking at the highly regulated, compliant way of doing this to make it more fun. And having those kind of options, and again, trying to assure that we have people do it responsibly, and not with with discretionary dollars, not with money earmarked for food, clothing, shelter, childcare, et cetera. And that's what we continue to strive to keep that benchmark of keeping a very low percentage of people that would seek help. But Eric's point, if they do need help, and having their family and friends to help them to get to that point. But we're seeing the positive trends of this starting to really take hold now through the football playoffs, the Super Bowl, and then with March Madness.
Anyone want to add anything to that?
Well, I think, all of this is certainly going on, and certainly as sports are ramping up, more and more people are going to be interested in wagering on sports. And again, as long as they're having a good time, and as Wes said, they're staying within their limits, they're seeing it as a form of entertainment, they're not chasing their losses, they're not looking for bailouts, then it becomes a win-win for everyone. We have tax revenue that's coming to the state that's helping support the activities that we're doing within the department, which is wonderful. I think the challenge that I offer to the industry is, help spread the word about 1-800-BETS-OFF. You're investing a lot of dollars in, getting the word about, hey, try our app, use our app, and set up an account with us. Is there a way that they can, assist in helping getting that message out? They've done a great job of putting these responsible gaming pieces of information and technology within the apps. But again, it's raising that bar that, the sports wagers, who some may be new to gambling and may have never heard of 1-800-BETS-OFF. It's like I mentioned earlier, we did this brand new be number one at getting help. We put our first TV commercial out in 10 years, but it got completely inundated by the multitude of vendors that were hawking their wares, if you will, over the last 4 or 5 months.
We have less than 5 minutes now, but I want to ask a question on the sports side. Do we believe, or is there even a thought, as you mentioned, Wes, that the major leagues were against it in all the other states, even though in Vegas it was legal? Do we believe it can ruin or at least taint the integrity of sport?
I don't think it can, and it will, because there's been some scandals along the way, and quite frankly, it was the sports books that uncovered some of these things. Like the NBA ref and other things. When you got people wagering on something, they wanted that game to be operated at a high level of integrity, and when things don't happen like that, they get uncovered quickly. And I think that's to the benefit of everyone. It gives the people the confidence that's not going to be tolerated. And so I believe this is a real positive. I believe now there's 21 states that have legalized sports wagering. I think we were like the 11th or 12th. And many more will come on. And as that continues to evolve, that just helps put that partnerships, if you will, to make sure that there is good collaboration and high level of integrity, hopefully in every state like we do have here in Iowa.
Anyone else?
Well, I think anywhere you have lots of money, you've got the possibility of some sort of corruption or scandal. I mean, one good thing that Iowa did, and Wes can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the final bill prohibited Iowans from doing in-game bets on like Iowa and Iowa State and the state teams, who's going to make the first free throw and those kind of things, which are the kind of things that you might tempt an athlete to sort of, change what they're doing if, for betting. But I there's always going to be the possibility. But I mean, Wes is right. With the technology now, it's a little bit tougher to do that than it was when you were paying the local bookie and no one knew about it.
And Todd makes a great point about that with what we have, now with, so that, agree that you can bet on the team, like Iowa State, UNI, et cetera, on the team, but you cannot bet on a player from an Iowa-based team or the team they're playing against for that game. And so I think that's been a real positive and just another plus for keeping a high level of integrity.
Perfect. Well, this has been obviously a topic we couldn't even begin to exhaust. I want to thank you guys for your time today and educating the populace, because I think people are seeing the ads and seeing the abundance of sports gambling occurring, but not really sure what this means. There's a belief that any amount of gambling causes harm and eventually leads people to a life of addiction, while there are others who believe it has become less interesting, so placing wager adds excitement. Regardless of what side of the fence you stand on, sports betting is here to stay, so creating a means for it to flourish and still protect those who might not realize that it is necessary should remain an absolute focus. So while we won't solve this issue today, let's maintain an attitude of diligence to keep people safe and allow our games to thrive. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Carl.
Thanks.